Hello everyone, welcome to the Spin Zone. This is another Spin Zone video. It's Jeff, and haven't been on the VC all that much lately. I just haven't had a lot of time, and I've kind of taken a step back a little bit just to focus more on music, which you'll see because I've got 10 albums to show and talk a little bit about. And yeah, I think I was putting out too many videos too often. So I'm trying to cut back a little bit, make them hopefully a little bit more quality than quantity. And of course, that's a completely subjective thing, up to you all if you think this is quality or not, because I don't know. The other reason I haven't been around a whole lot is I've been having some dental issues. I see that. See that right there? That's a temporary cap that has been kind of giving me problems because like 2 weeks ago, I went to the dentist and he was going to replace an old filling of mine, and he was drilled it out, and I guess what happened was that filling leaked. And the tooth underneath got a little more decay on it, so we ended up drilling a lot more out than he thought. And he said, "You're better off just getting a crown." So I said, okay. And so we put a temporary on there while he was getting the crown made. The only problem was, yesterday, the cap came off, and I was at work. I almost swallowed the dang thing, just from taking a drink of water. And yeah, so I'm at work, with my hand in my mouth trying to grab the thing and then put it back the right way. It was a fun time. But yeah, that's in fact, I just went to the dentist like an hour ago, and he said I'm not ready yet for the permanent one because my gum is still too swollen. So we glued the temporary back in my head, and we're just moving on for now. So that's what's been going on with me lately. I mean, I've watched a few videos, I've commented on a few, but the VC has taken a little bit of a back seat here lately to current personal events in my life. So the good news is, after today's Thursday, I'll be on vacation for like 10 days. So I think I'm gonna try and pull like a Steve Carlson bit and just do nothing or as little as I possibly can, read a lot, listen to a lot of music. Unfortunately, my wife still has to work. She doesn't have enough time off to take the week with me, which is going to be starting tomorrow through all of next week, and I won't go back until the following Wednesday night. So I'm going to have a good 10 or 11 days off in a row, which is a first for me this year because vacation has been really hard to come by lately. All right. So like I said, this is a Spin Zone video. The theme of this one is going to be XTC albums. I dove into the XTC catalog wholeheartedly. And that actually started with the last video. I showed their first album called White Music. You can always refer to the end of that video to see that album if you're interested in it. So what I did is I started with their second album, and I alternated with other albums, just for variety's sake, to keep my mind fresh. So, listening to the same artist or the same band too many times in a row, things just kind of blur together. And I was even alternating albums, I was kind of running into that with this. So bear with me. I'm gonna try and talk about these a little bit intelligently. That's also another subjective opinion. All right, so we're gonna start with XTC's second album, Go 2. And as you can see, this is the famous cover designed by Hypnosis. If you want to zoom in, I can hold this steadily if you can see it through the glare. And pause the video, you can read all of this. And we've got more on the back. There's a lot of reading with this album cover. So, and this is on the good old Virgin record label. I'm only showing these record labels on these XTCs because you'll see as we go along here. If the energy level on their first album, White Music, if we called that like a 10, with very, you know, jittery, skittering guitars, screamy, shouty lyrics, that sort of thing, a very power punk pop sound. This album follows much in the same vein as that one, except the energy level is dialed down a bit, like maybe to like an 8.5. But Andy Partridge still shouts/screams the lyrics a lot more than sings them. So they were very hyper still. I don't know why. They were just very, you know, like they were getting an electric shock stuck through them. The songs are still good. I just, it got to be a little bit much after a while. Because I listened to this one pretty close to the first one, you know, in a row. And like I said before, it's not the XTC that I'm necessarily used to. Still worth a listen. I mean, they're still good albums. They just need to calm down a little bit. That's all. That would be my only criticism of these two albums, is that they just need to calm the F down a little bit. Sing the lyrics. You know, they write good lyrics, they write good music. They just need to deliver them to the audience in a little more, you know, appealing manner. But all in all, I enjoyed this album. I'm going to be going back to all of these XTCs and listening to them multiple more times, because there's just so much great stuff there. But, okay. This is their second album, Go 2. It's good stuff. And then I've been continuing on with my Genesis listening on the side also. This is their album called Wind and Wuthering. As you can see here. I have to say that the two albums that Genesis made, which would be this one and A Trick of the Tail, where Peter Gabriel had left the band, but Steve Hackett was still in the band, I find to be probably more enjoyable than anything else that I've listened to from Genesis. I mean, I like the Gabriel stuff, don't get me wrong, you know, with the possible exception of Lamb, which I still need to work on. But listening to this one, it's very much like Trick of the Tail. It's got, you know, Phil Collins kind of, sort of aping Gabriel's vocal style still, but he's starting to come into his own a little bit. And this is on, it's on Atco here. Very nice record. I remember getting this for a couple of bucks at a record show, and I couldn't resist. Very enjoyable. I know the Vinylverse Bill is going to be smiling when I say this. I've just decided to try to go ahead and track down all the Genesis albums, and I just won an eBay auction for 3 of their 80s albums. I got Abcab, the self-titled Genesis, and Invisible Touch for like $18. So, you know, $6 a piece. Not too bad for allegedly mint albums. And I bought from this seller before, so I'm reasonably confident that they're going to be in advertised condition. But anyway, this album is, like I said, I really liked it. It's a little more moody. It's a little more, it just puts you in a different place for a little while. I find it very enjoyable. Just this lineup of Genesis, when they still had Steve Hackett, I wish had lasted longer. I wish he stuck with the band longer. I think they could have made a lot more quality albums like this one. Not that the other ones weren't quality, but they're just different. This lineup of Genesis is turning out to be my favorite because I've gone back and listened to Trick of the Tail many times, And I know I'm going to be listening to this one over and over many times to come. So, Wind and Wuthering by Genesis. Very good stuff. All right, let me organize myself here. Then we move to the third XTC album, which is called Drums and Wires. Now, if you take a look at the set list here, if you're familiar at all with this album, you will see that Making Plans for Nigel is not on this copy. And for the life of me, I haven't been able to figure out why. The only thing I've been able to do, I looked it up on Discogs, and I'm just going to show you the label because all of these XTC albums I'm going to show you have different record labels on them. This one is Virgin, but I'm assuming it was distributed by Epic in the US. That's about the best I can figure. And yeah, I played this one, and I'm like, I thought Making Plans for Nigel was on this album, and I didn't hear it. And I'm like, what the heck? I looked on the back like I just showed you. It's not there. I checked the other albums, you know, thinking that maybe I made a mistake, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I looked it up on Discogs. And all I was able to find out was that this copy with the Epic label was a repress from 1982. I was able to find the matrix number, but no explanation why Making Plans for Nigel isn't on here. And there was even a thread I found on Discogs, and people were asking the same question, but no one was able to answer. So I didn't really go hardcore into research about it, but if anybody happens to know why certain issues of this album doesn't have that song on there, because that was the big hit off this album. I don't know why it wouldn't be on here. If anyone knows, pop me a comment and share the knowledge. But for me, this was the great leap forward in XTC sound. Even though it doesn't have the hit single on it, everything else on this album is really good. And they've started, the band has started to slow down a little bit, play their songs a little bit nicer. Andy Partridge and Colin have started singing more instead of shouting. Very nice. We start to see the master songcraft that XTC is known for, at least to me. And that really begins with this album, Drums and Wires. So, yeah, this was more in line with what I'm used to from XTC compared to the first two albums. But I'm a little annoyed that, like I said, it doesn't have its most famous song isn't on here. So, go figure. Then we move from them, alternate to Melissa Etheridge. This was her second album, Brave and Crazy. I picked this one out one night when I was here with my wife, and she just wanted to hear something, you know, just something good. She just said, pick something good. So I know she loves Melissa Etheridge. I do too. And there's a lot of good songs on this album that became chart hits. So, among female singers, I find Melissa Etheridge to be very enjoyable. She's got that, she could sing, you know, the down and dirty, bluesy rock songs really well. So, I've kind of offhandedly started picking up her albums wherever I can find them on vinyl. So, Brave and Crazy was the one that we spun the other day. Very good stuff. Very good listen. Now, we return to XTC again, to their next album, which is called Black Sea. And this one came in a paper wrapper, which is in pretty delicate condition, so I'm going to leave it in the sleeve. As you can see, it's got this in here, and it's also got a tag on the back. Yeah, from Virgin. You can see this one is from Virgin RSO Records. Here's the album cover itself. The title's not marked on it. And as promised. No, it's not the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, even though you see the RSO label. It's Virgin RSO. And all I can tell you about this album is that it's just ridiculous with catchy tunes. I mean, even more so than Drums and Wires. I mean, almost every song on this album, and I'm not kidding, is an earworm-worthy track. I mean, Generals and Majors, I think, was the radio hit. And I think most people would know that song if they heard it. And, I mean, I can just go down the line. Respectable Street, that's a great song. Towers of London, Paper and Iron, Love at First Sight, Rocket from a Bottle. All of these songs, as I listened to them, they just, like, dug their way into my brain. And if I listened to each of these songs multiple times in a row, I would just be humming it for like a week straight. So, in terms of quality songcraft, this is even a greater leap forward than Drums and Wires was, because there's not a bad track on here. All of them are killer. All of them are hummable or, like I said, earworm worthy. I would just be humming the riff again and again and again as each one is playing. And then the next one would come along. And then that one would take over. And then I would be humming that one again and again and again. And then on down the line until the record was over. So, so far, I mean, as each one goes along, each album is better than the last, as far as I'm concerned. And Black Sea is so far the best yet. I can't say anything bad about it. This is really good stuff. This is an album I will be coming back to and playing again and again and again and again. Without a doubt. And then, as we keep our alternating theme going, I saw Jeff Party show this album in one of his videos, and I saw he posted on Facebook. And it sparked a memory that I picked up a copy myself at an estate sale. As you can see, it's got some ring wear on it. It's not as pristine as his copy. It's the faces. A nod is as good as a wink to a blind horse. It's also on the green Warner Brothers label. If Warner Brothers made Dynaflex albums, this one would probably be a Dynaflex because it is very thin. It still plays good, and even though it has like visible scuffs on it, the audio quality is pretty decent. So I was able to crank this up and enjoy the music without having to crank it up to cover up cracks and pops. And we all know what we're talking about when we comes across records like that. This was a good record to jam to. This was actually the first Faces album that I've owned and that I listened all the way through. Stay With Me is the big classic rock radio hit that you'll hear all the time, and it's still a great song. Memphis, they do a cover of Memphis, which I think was a smaller hit for them. But even some of like the album cuts, like Debris was the first song off of side 2. That's a really great song. And That's All You Need, which is an album closer. Another great, great song. I mean, this is just great, basic, well-sung, well-played, well-produced rock. You know, this album came out in '73, before Rod Stewart became a pod person and started singing, you know, soft rock / disco / standards. He's meant to be a rock singer, and that's all he's really ever going to be to me. So when he was making solo albums and albums with the Faces in the early '70s is my favorite period of his. And this is easily worth coming back to and listening to over and over. And now I'm interested in trying to find more of their albums, so I'll probably do that. You know, that's going to go on the mental list too. So thanks, Jeff, for showing it. It was a good good album. It was a good reason for me to play it. So, The Faces, not as good as a wink to a blind horse. Now we go back to XTC with their next album, which is called English Settlement. This was one of the harder albums for me to track down until I went to a record show with Sean's Lock, and he found it right away. So this was the big get for me at that show. This is their double album. It's not a gatefold, but it is a double album. And this one, to continue with the record label theme, because this one's on a different record label too. This one's on Geffen Virgin Records. So, what can I say? Continuing in the vein of the Black Sea album, this one is more polished. The songcraft is just as strong. And really, I mean, a double album's worth of this is... To properly absorb this would probably take multiple listens. Because, like I said, I've been listening to basically one XTC album and then one alternate album per day for the last week. So I'm trying to keep everything straight in my head about what to say about each album. And I'm starting to run out. So all I can say is, in terms of listening and absorbing the material, this is going to require more than just, you know, one or two spins. But this is a very enjoyable record. Senses Working Overtime is on this one. Yeah. And No Thugs in Our House, Melt the Guns. There's a lot of... This came out in 1982. So I think there's more of an anti-war sentiment. Not settlement, sentiment on this record compared to their other ones. Probably reflecting what Britain was going through at that time. I don't know. But really great record. I can't say anything bad about it. Only good things. And a lot of these albums they're just textbook cases of how to craft a catchy song. That's really the best adjective that I can describe their music. It's catchy. It's very hummable. The melodies just, like I say, work their way into your head. So, and then as every album goes along, these guys just get better at it and better at it and better at it. You know, they're geniuses as far as I'm concerned. You know, Andy Partridge and Colin Moulding, just great songwriters and performers and producers. So, English Settlement, another winner. Then we're closing in on the end here. Stay with me. This is going to be a long video. I should have said that at the beginning. Urge Overkill Saturation. I'm going to try and speed it up here. I saw this on a Facebook ad because of all of my record-related posts and groups that I follow. Facebook's algorithm tunes me into record releases. So when I saw this was being re-released, let me show you the record. It's on pretty blue vinyl. Show you with the label right side up. Here you go. Very nice, 180 gram. When I saw this, I had to have it. This album came out, I think, in 1993 originally. It doesn't say on here, but if I remember correctly, it did. I bought this on cassette when this was new, probably in early 94. And when I posted this on Facebook, all I said was, hello 1994, which is true, because every time I played the crap out of the cassette when I got it, because I love this album. I love this record. And and I hadn't heard it in probably 15 years or longer, because I got rid of all my cassettes a long time ago. And when I played this right away, as soon as I heard the first track, Sister Havana, it just took me right back to 1994. The job I was working, where I was at in my life, the people that I was hanging out with, everything. The car I was driving, it just took me right back. Just gave me that mental trip back in time. I'll show you the set list here. And Sister Havana, I don't know how big Urge Overkill was outside of Chicago, because in the early 90s, like when this album came out, you know, you had the Smashing Pumpkins were getting big, Liz Phair, Material Issue, these guys, they were all, I don't know how much national attention Urge Overkill got compared to like the Smashing Pumpkins, because I know they became nationally famous. So I can't really say if anybody has ever heard of these guys outside of Chicago. I know their big hit was the cover of Neil Diamond's Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon on the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. But besides that, I don't think they ever got a big hit. But in Chicago radio, they were all over the airwaves. Songs like Sister Havana, like I said, Positive Bleeding, Back on Me, all those songs were heavy rotation favorites. And I think people thought that Urge was going to be big like the Smashing Pumpkins, but it never made it that way. But nevertheless, this album here, Saturation, is fantastic. Highly recommended. It's rock. It's almost power pop-ish. It's got that energy. It's got great songwriting, great playing. I can't say anything bad about it. Like I said, and it takes me back to a specific time and place. So of course I've got, you know, the whole nostalgia thing going, but I think to new ears, people would still enjoy this album too. So, and it wasn't that expensive to get the reissue. So yeah, highly recommended if you're interested in Chicago rock, I guess. I don't know what else to call it. From the early 90s, check out Saturation by Urge Overkill. Okay, we got two more to go here. Mummer by XTC is the next album, actually the final album that I'll be talking about in this video. I'm trying to speed things along here. This one has Lovin' a Farm Boy's Wages was the big song off of this one, along with Funk Papa Roll. And I've run out of adjectives to say about XTC at this point, so I need to take a rest. I still have, I think, 4 more albums of theirs to listen to, which I'll cover in the next video. But I listened to this morning, as a matter of fact. This and the last one I'm going to show I played just now, so it's the freshest in my memory. The sound on this record is a little dreamier, I would say. Probably a little more ethereal compared to their earlier stuff that I showed. Yeah. I love XTC, and it's been a real treat playing these records in a row like I have been, I have to say. Very, very enjoyable. So Mummer continues in that vein. Sorry, I don't have anything much else to say about it. And last but not least, the VCLT I got from my buddy Steve over at Value Vinyl. This is the Elvin Bishop Hog Heaven album. He sent this to me last week on Capricorn Records. It played beautifully, great sound, and unlike the other Elvin Bishop album I showed a couple of videos back, this one is more good time boogie / good time country swing, and not a whole lot of blues. Still a good listen. It was still enjoyable. I mean, the songcraft is great. Midnight Creeper, which is the album closer, is actually all he does is sing about taking drugs and different drugs. It's really kind of funny. But Maria Muldaur also appears on this album and does background vocals on 2 of the songs, and she actually sings lead on the song called True Love. So, like I said, there's not a whole lot of guitar solos on this. Not really a blues album, but still, it's a good time record. This would be a good time record to put on, you know, at a party or something. So, Hog Heaven by Elvin Bishop. Very fun listen. So, thank you once again, Steve. This was a good one. And that's it. I'm sorry this video took so long, closing in on 30 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up now, and thank you all for watching. If you made it to the end, I love you. And I will be back probably next week with the rest of the XTC albums and whatever else I alternate with it. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Hope everyone has a happy Halloween if I don't see you before then. Peace, take care, and I'll see you.